Hey, Chance, thanks for being on our podcast. We've already introduced you. You're the travel professional. So the big question of the day is why should somebody, first of all, tell us about yourself a little bit more and go right into like why somebody would use a travel agent.
Thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Brian Chance Williams. I go by my middle name, Chance. And I just a little bit of background information on me. I grew up in a military slash airline household. My dad was a naval aviator and an airline pilot for an old carrier that's no longer around called Eastern Airlines. A lot of people might
Yeah.
remember them,
hmm
big silver planes with the blue stripes down the tail. And they were at some point one of the largest airlines in the free world. But they went out of business in '91, and he ended up getting a job flying for Aloha Airlines. So my folks live in Hawaii now, where they're retired. But growing up, I was part of the whole travel experience. I went everywhere, both here and abroad. Domestic and international travel background. Started my own airline career as a flight attendant with Eastern, and they went belly up. And I had a few years in between where I didn't do anything airline related, and then I became a customer service rep for another major carrier, Southwest Airlines, and spent over 2 decades with them before I retired myself in 2015. And so, how I got into becoming a travel agent. Um, I spent a little bit of time bouncing around, but I really wanted the flexibility and the freedom of being able to work for myself remotely from home, dictate my own work schedule. I'm a single dad to my daughter, who's now 12, and I wanted to watch her grow up and not miss out on all those important moments like birthdays and holidays and such. And this was a perfect opportunity for me to combine my airline or my travel background with providing a service to people um, that I might be able to provide a service to.
Well, if you can just start out and tell us why would I want to use a travel agent if I'm pretty good at traveling and I've booked my own flights. And my memory of a travel agent is that's how you got your ticket. You'd call them and they'd book the ticket for you, and you'd go over there and you'd take the handheld ticket. And I think that's what a lot of people think it is still. So what do you do? How can you help me?
Well, yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that the travel agents. They've sort of morphed into this current model of being virtual, and
Hmm.
everything is electronic now, and you do it on websites and so forth. My earliest recollection of a travel agency was whenever you went to a store like Sears or J.C. Penney or a Montgomery Ward, and they had a travel agency right there in the building next to, usually it was the optical department where they
Yeah,
sold
and there was
optical.
usually a photo shop there too. You get family pictures. Would go to the mall. Everybody
All
dress
that,
up. Yeah, back in the
passports,
day.
everything. You
Yeah,
come in
Right,
in a
right.
suit and a jacket.
yeah.
Exactly.
hmm
And that was when, they would actually print out on hard stock paper tickets, or even on those little soft carbon copy ones where they were like in triplicate, remember those?
And God help you if you lost one, because that was the value. It was like currency. That
That
was
was
it.
that
That was
was
all
it.
you
It
had.
was like
Yeah,
money. It was like I
yeah.
mean, if you have a $20 bill and you lose it, well, that's it. Same thing with the paper tickets. Now everything is done online, on websites and so forth. And airlines have gone that direction too. They don't write out their tickets anymore or issue paper tickets anymore. Everything is done electronically. Now, um, why use a travel agent if I book myself? Well, uh, these services like Travelocity and Priceline and Expedia and the other OTAs, they're online travel agencies. They have made it very, very easy, very streamlined, and very user friendly in most cases. But a lot of times there's a lot of fine print that most people don't take the time to read, and they are loaded with fees sometimes, and penalties and so forth. Um, and they have created travel agent versions of these same portals.
Oh,
So Expedia has one called the Expedia Tap, the travel agency version of Expedia, and others. And when you're certified in those, then you can go ahead and book the travel and advise the client of a lot of the policies and things that go along with it. Another reason is because even though it's easy, people don't know necessarily what they're doing beyond booking the ticket. And so I provide advice. You know, I can go and arrange for excursions or suggest different activities and things like that. Even when something were to go awry before, during, or even after the trip, I can act as an advocate for the client when dealing with the travel provider. And all that comes free of charge. I don't
that's one
charge
of the
at all.
questions I wanted to ask you. How much does it cost me to use a travel agent? So nothing.
Yeah. No, in most cases, the service is provided absolutely free to you because our earnings come in the form of commissions from the supplier or
Okay.
the vendor, and so it would cost you no more to book your own trip than it would for you to use me. And in many cases, there are perks and other goodies and things like that that I can offer you that for using me that you can't get on your own.
Can
And
you
plus,
give
there
us a
are promotions and discounts and things like that that are available to me that may not be available to the general public.
give us an idea of one of your clients, obviously without, using names and things, of how have you saved the day for somebody, knowing, when they've used a travel agent versus what would have happened if they hadn't?
Right. Well, I mean, there are a few stories, and a couple of them come to mind. The others just kind of come along with.
Sure.
They're in the form of advice. What would you do in this case? That kind of a thing. But the two that come to mind, two or three. One, um, I had a client who was delayed. At the gate, she was on board a flight, and they were going to Hawaii. They had a scheduled connection in Dallas Fort Worth. They were leaving Atlanta. They were going to Dallas Fort Worth to change planes to hop on a flight um, to Honolulu. And she was already on board the airplane, and she texted me. She said, "Hey, we're on board the flight, but the plane isn't going anywhere for a while, some kind of a mechanical issue." And so maintenance is on board. They're looking at it and they're running tests and so forth. And so we fear that we're going to be missing our connecting flight in Dallas. So, sure enough, once they addressed the problem, they left and they arrived in Dallas too late for their scheduled connection. Well, while they were in the air, I was on the phone with the air carrier, and I was able to go ahead and get them rebooked, so that by the time they arrived in Dallas, all they needed to know, I went ahead and told her, you need to head over to this gate and catch this flight to Los Angeles and catch another flight from Los Angeles to Honolulu. And I think it might have gotten them to Honolulu some, I don't know, a couple, 2, 3 hours later, something like that. I called the hotel, advised them that my clients were going to be late, so not to cancel anything. They were on their way, but they were going to be checking in a little later than anticipated. And so, in that scenario, had she booked it herself, when she arrived in Dallas, she would have had to have gone to the customer service desk or whatever representative was going to be helping that long line of people that were in the same situation wait her turn, and who knows how they would have routed her because typically when you have a plane load of people whose connections are affected, you can't jam everybody onto the same flights. They have to be sort of piecemealed out until they get to where they're going. And so her situation was pretty much addressed even before they arrived, so that
So
they knew
you were doing that while they were in the air, basically.
behind the
Wow.
scenes.
So
Yeah.
you jumped the line for them, and so they didn't have to worry about it. See, that to me, and a
Yeah.
trip to Hawaii like that, you can imagine you get there a day late because of an airline issue because you didn't have access that you have. That's a great story.
So essentially, when I'm using a travel agent, especially one as experienced as yourself, I'm getting concierge service for my trip, for the details that are, I can ask you to book, you said book an excursion. I can ask you to make a change if possible in a flight time or things like that. And
Yeah.
we don't get that if we book it ourselves.
I tell people that, if it requires a ticket, I can book it. So it's not limited just to travel.
Really?
Sporting events, concerts, tickets. If you were to go to Las Vegas and there is a line around the block, I could go ahead and arrange for VIP tickets and bottle service in a nightclub and
Oh, really
Huh.
interesting.
all that kind of thing.
So, like, I know
Yeah.
some people. We talked to a lot of people about travel, being travel content creators, and there seems to be two groups of people: those that like to travel plan, like me, but most people don't like to travel plan. It's like, you know, cutting the grass or pulling weeds. It's just painful for them, right? They don't like it. So if somebody was putting a trip together, like let's say a couple of guys want to go, hey, we want to do 4 guys want to do a golf trip to Vegas. Brian, Chance, can you just book this all for us? And and have you just put the whole thing together, and they can go on about their business, and that's pretty much what you do, right? That's your
I've
business in a
done that.
nutshell. Have you? Okay.
I've done that before for that exact scenario. A golf trip, a golf outing. Working on 2 trips right now, where one is a 40th birthday and another one is a 50th birthday. And I've got someone that actually 2 50th birthday celebrations. So scratch that. There are 3 birthdays that I'm working on right now. One to Vegas, and another one to the Bahamas. Actually, she wanted to know about both the Bahamas, and she added Jamaica to her list. So I just completed that. I need to get with her later today and discuss those possibilities. And then somebody else who they are. Um, going to be celebrating I didn't even know it was a thing until I got into this business. Well, they have honeymoons for newlyweds. Well, they have baby moons now for people that are expecting a child. And so they wanted me to look into 3 different destinations: Cancun, Jamaica, and Costa Rica. And so I'm going to be getting with them either today or tomorrow to discuss, uh, you know, what
So for
they're going to
so
do.
for someone like us who likes travel planning, how can we still use, like you said, we can give you the ideas of what we're
Yeah.
looking for, and then you can take the ball and run with that.
Right. So when someone reaches out to me to retain my services, I send them we first have a conversation, and if they like the idea of using my services, I'll send them something called a qualification form. And the qualification form is a questionnaire, basically, where I ask them not only for their name or their number and their contact information, but other important stuff like, where is it you want to go, the dates of travel, what's your passport situation,
Mm.
is there any flexibility in your travel dates, because sometimes it's cheaper to go on a certain day than it is for another. Like Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays are cheaper to travel than Mondays and Fridays, for example.
Oh,
Uh,
Saturday's cheaper. I did not know that. Okay. I
mhm.
knew the
Yeah,
middle of the week was ideal, but I thought Saturday would be a weekend rate, but not necessarily, right?
because most people are traveling Friday to return on Sunday. So
Right.
Saturdays typically are
Weekend
when
trips.
they're
Yeah.
running
Hmm.
specials to
Oh,
get
that makes
people.
sense.
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh,
Interesting.
how about that?
And
Okay.
what's your budget? What are you comfortable spending? Because I'd be wasting my time quoting a trip if I didn't know how much you had to spend, and stuff. And once I get all of that information, you know, then I can go ahead and piece something together for you to see if this is something you'd like to move forward with. I had a situation where, talk about saving the day. This I have family of four. These two folks and their kids had they had booked the trip with me uh, 8 months, 9 months in advance, something like that. Plenty of time. But and I've been asking her, hey, what's your passport situation? And finally, she got around to telling me that, well, mine and my husband's have arrived, but the kids' passports have not yet. I'm like, well, when did you apply for those? Because usually it's about 8-10 weeks now. It doesn't take very long. And she said, like, about 3 weeks ago. I'm like, you guys leave in a week. Uh, a month is not sufficient. So they were going to Cancun. So their whole trip was fixing to be scrapped. And so I said, okay. She's like, what do I do? What I do? Because she's all in a panic. And I said, okay, let's just, we can save this trip. It's no big deal. Number one, are you able to go later? Can we push it back? No, not really. Okay. Let me check around. And so she wanted to go to some place that was tropical, some place that was all inclusive, where they weren't going to get hit with all these charges, cafeteria style, have to pay for their meals and drinks and everything. So, long story short, I went ahead and booked them on a trip, and they did have to pay, extra because it was a different destination. It was more last minute, but it wasn't unreasonable. It was under $1,000, like $800 for four of them, and they had to go a week later because I wasn't able to get them for the dates that they wanted. But it was only a week later, and I sent them to this wonderful all-inclusive resort in St. Thomas. And because it's in the U.S. Virgin Islands, passports are not required. So, um, and then ironically, the kid's passport she shared with me arrived after they returned from their
Of
vacation.
course
Oh,
they did,
very
because that's how it
interesting.
goes. Well,
So,
that's a great story because they would not have. I mean, you literally say kind of saved. Well, you did save that trip for them, right? Just because you had an idea.
Well,
They
it
they
was
were
either
they were going to end
it,
up not getting their passports the day before, and they would have been in panic mode, right?
it was either USVI or Puerto Rico, right? San Juan, and those are both U.S. territories, and so passports aren't required. And they had themselves a lovely time, and stuff. So
we oh, we always encourage especially in Florida travel with hurricanes and all the different things. We always encourage people to do travel insurance. What is your opinion on that?
I I will be the first to admit that travel insurance was something that I didn't think about using before I got into this business. Now, I highly recommend it, and in many cases, I've had people. I've only had two people outright refuse to get the travel insurance, and I told them, I said, "Then you're going to have to find somebody else to book this trip because I don't want to be there to it's going to be a poor reflection on me if something goes sideways and then you reach out to me and I'm unable to do anything. So, um, in a lot of cases, I'm able to talk them into it. And in a couple of instances, they didn't go with it, but I make them sign a waiver. I've made this available, but you declined. That way, if something happens, it's not going to come back and blow up in my face. But usually, travel insurance is canceled for any reason. It could be weather, it could be somebody got sick, it could be something else, and it really will protect your investment when it comes to spending thousands of dollars and then something unexpected happens at the last minute. Um, I can share a brief story with you, if I may,
Sure.
where
Please.
that actually did save somebody. I had a couple that booked a pair of back-to-back sailings with me on an upscale cruise brand. They were going on Celebrity, which is Royal Caribbean's cousin, I guess, in their same brand, same network. And back-to-back sailings in the Mediterranean. They were supposed to fly into Spain, sail 9 days, and then arrive in Rome, and then sail another 10 days around the Greek islands and everything and arrived back in Rome. They had hotel scheduled for a couple of nights in Barcelona before, and then a couple of days in Rome scheduled afterwards. So 19 days of sailing plus days before and after, they were looking at nearly a month away. Everything had been booked 11 months in advance. We had all the I's dotted, the T's crossed, and um, in the middle of all this, they were living here in South Carolina, where I am, and they actually had picked up and moved to Florida. So we did have to change their flights to leave Florida instead of here in South Carolina. But other than that, everything had been pretty much, you know, arranged. And then 2 days before they were supposed to hop on a plane to Barcelona, the gentleman tested positive for COVID. And
Hmm.
so that cruise never happened. Well, they spent in excess of $20,000 for those two sailings, plus all the hotels and everything. And because of the travel insurance, they were able to get every bit of their money back, with the exception, of course, of the cost of the policy. But the policies, the insurance is a fraction of the cost of the entire trip, so it really will be your safety net in case something unexpected were to happen.
And I think you shared with us a chance that that was pretty close to the time they were, so about 2 days before they were supposed to go, right? So, and that's when the
2 days.
penalties are the highest, right? The closer to the trip, the more you lose potentially, and the more fees you pay. Is that generally the case?
Well, there's a penalty schedule or a fee schedule. So if you cancel between 60 and 90 days, it might be you lose a quarter of your money. And then if you cancel 45 days to 60 days, you lose half of it, right? 50%. And then if it's 30 days to 45 days, you might lose a quarter. But that close, you if you cancel and you don't have anything to protect you that close to departure, it's the penalty is 100%.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. So
Yeah.
that was a huge savings. I guess I've always thought of travel insurance, like you mentioned that you were not a travel insurance fan, prior to becoming an agent. And it just feels like just this tax I just don't want to pay. It's like you want to resist the system, stick it to the man. I don't want to pay this. But I think I have to learn to think of it like car insurance or homeowners insurance or anything like that. If nothing
That's
happens, you feel like, okay, you wasted your money, but you just know that, okay, well, if my vehicle gets totaled, I'm driving a fairly expensive F-150, the insurance, they got money pulled up, they'll replace it. That could save me, tens of thousands of dollars on a premium that's not that much per month. Well, more than I'd like it to be, but everybody says that. So same thing.
that's
That's how we have to get
exactly
them in the
the
same mentality, right?
that's exactly the example that I use, Clark.
Really?
I mean,
Okay.
100%. I tell people all the time, insurance isn't something that we all look forward to paying, but your house burns down, and you're darn sure you've got glad that you've got it, because if you didn't, you lose everything. Same with a car. Like, if you don't like paying insurance, but you total your car, and you're not stuck paying for another one out of pocket, right? So yeah, I tell people the very same thing. Um, you know, it's not something that you want to pay, but if something were to happen, you'll be glad you did.
Interesting. Interesting.
So
Heather,
as
you going to
far
ask a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, is there something in the way of benefits or spiffs that I can um look forward to if I book through a travel agent? I mean, am I always going to get the best price when I book through you, or is it just the same price and it's just the assurance that it's going to go smoothly?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of people believe that using a travel agent means that they're going to get the best price, and I am here to tell you that that won't always be the case. Full transparency. I'm nothing if I'm not being upfront. We don't always get the same price, but where we tend to prove our value and is in the service that we're able to provide in case anything were to happen, number one. Number two, in many cases, if you were to be able to provide me with some kind of an invoice or a quote or an ad that says it's at a certain price, then sometimes through my suppliers, I'm able to offer a price match.
Hmm.
obviously I can't just take people at their word. Hey, I saw this for this and it was $500 less than what you're able to offer it for. I need some kind of verification. And if it's legit, then I can go to the supplier and say, hey, one of your ads says this. Can you offer this price? And in many cases, they can. So, yeah. Um, and then you were wondering about uh, perks and benefits and so forth. Many times there are some perks that are available, as well as promotions and discounts and things that are available to us as travel agents that are maybe not available to the general public, or sometimes the public they don't think to ask. You never, if you don't ask, the answer is always going to be no, right? As the old saying
Right.
goes. But you never know unless you ask. And sometimes people are too afraid or too shy to ask the right questions, or maybe not even know which questions to ask. And that's
Yeah,
something we can do.
I think I fit in the category. I think I know. I know what I'm doing, but I don't know what I don't know, which is true for all of us. And that's why
Sure.
I think we'll be using you a lot more in the future, just because, hey, Chance, I think this is a good idea. Or you were mentioning the story about that. For me, traveling in Europe is like, okay, that's different. I'm used to traveling domestically, but if I'm going to try to book somewhere like Barcelona coming off of I can get on the line and figure it out. But if I'm doing a month-long trip, which you talked about a minute ago, that's hours of work to try to get to, figure all that stuff out in a country I'm not familiar with and all that sort of thing. So I would be very happy to say, hey, Chance, can you figure this all out for me? That's what your job. That's what you do, right? All
I,
all the details, right?
I am in the process of booking a cruise for a couple that cruise lines like to run specials on ships. They're called repositioning cruises. And so they need the ship to go out of this one port. So they're one way sailings, right? They're
Mm.
going from one and they're not returning back to the same place. So they are sailing to another one. And sometimes they will go and run really good promotions for those sailings to fill those cabins. The ship has to go anyway, so they may as well fill it and they'll run specials. But this couple, they wanted to go. They just got off of a sailing aboard Royal Caribbean, and they met a bunch of the staff and crew and bartenders and everything that they really enjoyed. And they wanted to be able to sail with them again. And in October, and so she wanted me to check on the transatlantic cruise leaving from Rome to all the way back to the U.S. And unfortunately, that sailing had already sold out. There was no availability in any cabin or any category on board that ship. But she's asked me to look into maybe sailing just a 10-day cruise out of Rome, coming back to Rome before that ship has to make its way back over to the U.S. So, in addition to that, I'm looking into air. I'm looking into the hotel transfers to and from the hotel and the cruise port from the airport and stuff like that. So there's a lot of moving parts, tons of things that a lot of people might not think of right at the top. Um, and that's where I handle all of that soup to nuts without you having to pick up the phone and stay on hold and do everything on your own. About 3 months ago, I had a couple that um, well, they actually reached out to me probably about a year or so ago, but the trip took place about 3 months ago, and they spent 3 weeks, 21 days in the UK. They flew into London, spent 7 nights in London, then they went to Scotland, and I booked them in a beautiful um, Scottish castle, which is
Mm.
converted into a hotel. Yeah,
I'm going to
yeah,
slump over here for a minute. Yeah,
Scottish
wow,
Highland.
amazing.
And then after 7 nights in Scotland, they went to Ireland and they were in Ireland for 7 more nights. And they were all in the same places. They were like they were constantly moving. So it might be 2 nights at a bed and breakfast here. It might be 1 night at this hotel here. It might be, I mean, altogether they probably stayed in the course of 3 weeks at about 10 different properties.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Ooh.
Well, that's how
Yeah.
we like to travel. Heather and I, we're not the kind of people that want to be some one hotel, one town for a week, right? We want to sample.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the
So,
logistics are much higher. Like you got a lot more work to do, especially in a country that you're not familiar with. So there you go.
it was, I mean, it was a lot of work. I'm not going to lie, but listen, that's what I like to do.
Yeah, yeah. So, Chance, we've heard, I think you've told us that travel agents get to do a lot of fun things with different places, especially cruise lines. I think you said you've been on Virgin voyages 3 times. Is that correct?
I have sailed on Virgin 3 times. I really like their model because, number one, they are an all adult cruise line, 18 and up. And so, for people that want to be able to get away from the little ones and stuff like that, it's a great opportunity. And number two, I love their business model because everything is included. There's no additional um, cost for gratuities or for Wi-Fi or specialty dining or anything like that. They don't charge extra for that because everything is included in the cost of the cruise fare. Group exercise classes, those are all included. Um, when you sail on Virgin. Now, there are other family friendly brands that are out there. Carnival is one. I particularly recommend Royal Caribbean. That happens to be one of my daughter's favorites. Disney is also really popular with the families, and they have just as much stuff for the grown-ups as they have with the kids. Disney is a cruise line that does
That
it right.
surprised me. Yeah, they do
So,
adult. Of course, they do things well, but you think, oh, it's a kids' cruise, but no, things for adults too. Of
no,
course,
you know
it's
what? I know
interesting.
a lot of people that have no kids and they love to sail on Disney because of the level of
Wow,
service.
really? Okay,
Hmm.
Absolutely, yeah,
would not have thought that. There you go. Spoken
for
from a
sure.
travel agent. There you go.
There's a new up and coming cruise line. I say up and coming. They've been in existence for a couple of years now, but they have committed some $7 billion to adding to their fleet. They are called MSC,
Hmm.
which stands for the Mediterranean Shipping Company. Years ago, they were into logistics, shipping large, those huge containers, and stuff that go back and forth across the oceans and
Yeah, I've
stuff.
seen those. Yeah,
In recent years, they've gotten into the passenger cruising market, and they are just exploding. And so a little bit to your question, Heather, about whether cruise lines invite you to come and try out their product. MSC did it. I have sailed for free on Virgin Voyages. A lot of
Hmm.
times they'll go ahead and invite you to come and test out their product and check it out and see, uh, to expose you to what they have to offer so that you can better sell their product to your clients. Um, it's, they only offer them on cruise ships that have the availability. So these are cabins that would have gone unoccupied anyway. So why not?
yeah, right. For their
Right.
sake, sure, makes
And
good
then if I
business sense.
want to go on vacation with my daughter or a significant other, if I'm um, have a girlfriend or something, then there are rates that they offer for
For agent, the
travel agents.
agent rate. Yeah, lucky
The
you.
agent rate, the
Agent
agent
rate.
rate,
Yeah, that
exactly.
makes good business sense, of course. And
They are very significant, those discounts.
and you're putting together a couple cruises yourself for group cruises. Well, can you share with our listeners what that's about?
Sure, sure. I've got one group cruise on. They're both on Virgin, by the way. One is going to be in May, and it's going to Costa Maya, Mexico, as well
Nice.
as uh, their beach club in Bimini, the
Mm.
Bahamas, and it's a 5 night sailing. And yeah, it's going to be a great fun. I plan to be on that one myself, and I've got several cabins on that cruise. And then
Is that from Miami?
they all go out of Miami.
Miami. Okay.
The ones that sail out of Florida only go out of Miami. There are only 3 ships in Virgin's fleet. They started out with the Scarlet Lady, and then they had the Resilient Lady and the Valiant Lady both joined them in the past couple of years. I happen to be on uh, they called it the Mermaiden voyage for the Valiant Lady. And so that was the very first sailing, and it happened to be a Halloween cruise, which falls right around my birthday.
Wow.
So they had a huge celebration with costumes, and it was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. And the fourth ship in their fleet is joining them this year. That'll be the Brilliant Lady, and they will be making their way over to New York and then down to Florida through the Panama Canal and then Southern California, and eventually making their way up to Seattle. And in July of 2026, I've got a group cruise out of Seattle for Alaska. So it's going to be Alaskan sailing.
Wow.
And
Alaska
that's
on Virgin
something
in July. That sounds like an amazing trip. We may have to do that
that
ourselves,
we'll
actually.
together.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would be
Heather and
absolutely.
I
great.
have
Yeah.
significant birthdays coming up that time, so that we will be with you. So that sounds terrific. So
Come join
Okay,
us. Be a lot of fun.
if you had to consolidate the biggest mistakes people make when they travel, whether it's their booking or their timing, just to make us all better travelers, what would you say?
I would have to say that don't be penny wise and pound foolish. There is a difference. It's an old saying that I've gone by for most of my life, and there's a difference between being cheap and being frugal. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and so there are a lot of people that will try to save themselves some money. It ends up costing them a lot in the long run. I'll give you an example. The number of people that attempt to fly in to the city that they're sailing from on the very day that they're supposed to sail is stunning. Now, experienced cruisers know that you want to fly in to the cruise port, the departure port, a day or two in advance. Get the hotel. Yes, it's probably going to be 150 to 300 a night to stay, but if I'm paying $200 for a hotel room, uh, I can go out and enjoy the town and everything and already be there when I wake up the day that I'm supposed to sail. But if you try to show up at the airport on the morning that you're supposed to cruise to fly to wherever you're sailing from, you're asking for trouble. You are one canceled flight or one delay from not making your cruise ship. And there have been so many stories of how people scramble to get to the cruise port only to see the ship sail off without them.
Oh,
And
that's
you
terrible.
know,
that's a terrible feeling.
oh my God, and you see it all the time. So you just got done spending $5,000 for your family to go on vacation. Spend a couple $100 for a hotel and avoid the tears.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Years ago, Heather's parents, who are experienced cruisers, told us, they said part of the benefit of going the day before is you can get on the ship as early as possible the day you leave. So instead of getting on it half an hour before they leave, you get on at 1 o'clock or noon. We've been on at 11 on Norwegian before. We just get there early. We go before our scheduled time and go. And we were able to sit and have a seated lunch, 5 hours before you leave port. You're sitting by the pool. So you're adding a half day really of just fun before the ship leaves port. It's like you're paying for it. Why not? Plus the fun you had the night before. Like we did a cruise out of Fort Lauderdale, went to Los Olas area down there and had dinner and had a nice time. It was like another just part of the trip. And then the stress
exactly.
factor is gone. The stress is, am I going to get there? It's like we're 10 minutes. We could walk, with our bags down the sidewalk to the cruise port if you needed to. You're going to make it.
100%.
Mentioned too the days that are cheaper to fly. We ended up taking a cruise with one of our daughters, and the other two were out of the country. So we had a Christmas cruise that we took, and we found that it was flying in a couple of days early actually paid for itself because we were able to get a better rate on the flight into the city that we were
Yeah.
flying,
It was
cruising out of.
That's a great story here. There was Thursday of Southwest, like you said, it's cheaper. Friday and Sunday are the most expensive. So Wednesday, Thursday, even Saturday is cheaper. Yeah, the difference in flight for 3 people paid for 2 nights, more than covered 2 nights of hotel rooms, and extended our vacation. We got 2 days in Miami Beach. It's great.
And a lot of people don't know this, but Tuesdays, right around 1 or 2 in the morning, Tuesdays is when all the airlines uh, release their latest sales and promotions.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Like the music industry releases their movies.
Music release day. Yeah, that's
The
a good
Tuesday,
point, Heather.
yes.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yep. Most every Tuesday is when all of the airlines go and make their next promotion announcement. Right.
Interesting.
Those are great tips. Thank you.
Well, Chance, if people want to get in touch with you to get help with a trip, what's the best way to reach out to you? How can they get a hold of you?
Right. So the name of my company is Bon Chance Travel and Entertainment. Bon Chance is French for good luck or good fortune. So there's two ways to get a hold of me. Number one, you can call me direct. My number is 832-725-8666. And a couple of email addresses that'll work is one is info at bonchanctravel.com, BonChanceTravel.com. And then the other one for folks that are more Gmail users and they prefer Google is Chance.EvoTravel, EvoTravel at gmail.com. Any of those will work. And I'm grateful to have the opportunity to hear from you folks. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, Chance, thank you for your professional knowledge. Your experience is fascinating. We're travel nerds. That's what we do. So it's always great to hear from somebody like you who has the experience that we don't have. Hopefully we'll be able to join you on that Seattle or the Alaska cruise next summer July 26th.
Let's
It's like a
go.
lot of
I'd
fun.
love that.
I can hardly wait.
When
Yeah.
you said 2026, I'm thinking, oh, that's so far away.
That's
But
next
oh
year.
my gosh.
The other thing you said earlier, I think we touched a little bit about, things to do and things not to do. The other thing is you would be absolutely blown away by the number of people that reach out to me and they say, I want to go somewhere. Okay, when is your intended date of travel? Next month. Oh my goodness. We're way beyond last minute when you go to book a travel. 6 months is like minimum. A year
Oh, wow.
is better. And cruise lines now are even booking into 2026 and early 27 this far
27
out.
already. Wow. Okay. 2
Yeah.
years.
Now,
Okay.
now airlines don't release their schedules or their fares until an average of about 9 to 10 months in advance. But at least we can get the cruise booked and then deal with the room and the air later.
Is there a different kind of availability? Say you're really flexible and you spur of the moment want to take a trip and you're just taking your chances on what's available. Are there discounts and things like that when you do it like last minute?
Sometimes, but can't really guarantee that because by
Sure.
that time most everything is filled up.
Hmm.
Most of your better prices are going to be if you can plan in advance. That's when you're going to find the better deals and the better prices. Occasionally, you'll be able to find some deals or last minute discounts to fill any seats that went unsold up to this point. But you really don't want to wait until then, only to find out that there's nothing left. I mean, that's
Right.
really just, no guarantees there. Uh, but yeah, ideally, the more in advance that you plan your trip, the better, because that's where your discounts kick in. And also, I might add that if you do book a trip now, and then sometime between now and the date of travel, the rates go down, we can reprice.
Oh, that's
And
Ah,
great.
they'll
okay.
honor the lower price as if this is the first time you're booking it. And sure, yeah.
Well, after
Good to
talking
know.
to you today, we're all going to be better travelers.
Well, thank you, Chance. Appreciate your time and for your effort to be here on the podcast. And we look forward to booking with you in the future. And I think we'll have you on in a future episode and get deeper into cruising and different cruise lines and get your advice on times of year, ports of departure, places to go, passports, other things like that. And we'll do a cruise edition in the future, cruise version of this specifically.
You bet. I look forward
Okay.
to it.
Looking
Good
forward
to
to it.
see you.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Chance.
Thank you.